Welcome back to our channel, North Carolina Living. We are in the Rural Gardens today. So by now, you've probably seen our nursery tour that we did a couple of days ago. Well, now it's time to plant everything that we found. So rather than just kind of doing a haul like we did before, we have already laid out all the plants where we're going to plant them. So that is what we're going to do today. We are going to show you where we're going to plant them and put them in the Rural Gardens.
Yeah, we're excited to show you around the different sections of our garden where we're trying to add some accent plants. Most of what we got were a lot of flowering plants, perennials, things like that.
Maybe a couple conifers.
A few conifers in there as well. So we're excited about continuing to add plants to the garden. We've got a lot of plants out there already, but who can have too many plants, right?
Exactly.
It just doesn't really matter how many plants you have. You could always add a few more.
Right.
But we're excited to show you guys around, so come along with us. All right, so we're going to start out with one of the biggest plants that we picked up at some of our nursery hops. This one we got at Mr. Maple. This is a beautiful Japanese white pine called Blue Lou. And I love the Japanese white pines. They are amazing plants. They always create such cool shapes, and they have that beautiful like silvery blue color to them. One of my favorites. And this section of the garden here, I don't have a conifer, so I needed to add a conifer here. Now I strategically placed this next to a super dragon. So the super dragon right here is beautiful, bright colors, and this is going to be kind of a dark green with the silver blue cast to it. So I thought they would make great companion plants. The super dragon will get nice and tall, and this one stays nice and short. So it's a perfect spot to showcase Blue Lou with a beautiful super dragon behind it.
Moving right along. So here I have a perennial, and this one is called Decadence Deluxe Pink Lemonade. Now the flowers on this are going to get yellow with just some really nice light purple hues on the outer petals of those flowers. Now this perennial is going to get roughly 4 feet tall. So it'll be about right here. Now in this section of the garden we have this Kokio, which will be a taller upright. And to the sides of it, we have Ruby de Sophia, which is one of my favorites in the yard. It didn't make the video last time, but look at that variegation. And then you also have
Chantilly lace.
Thanks, babe. Chantilly lace. So again, you've got some of that vibrant yellowish lime green in the center with the edging of the red. So with this bright yellow flowers in the middle, that's going to add a beautiful contrast. We also have a little eyesore in this section of the garden, and this is an old water meter cover that's no longer being used. So we're also thinking of different ways we can kind of cover this up in the landscape. So this again will get about 4 feet tall, hopefully disguising that, but blending perfectly with these nice pinks and lime green trees to each side.
All right, so we're moving down to a new section of the garden. We've got a ton of Japanese maples and conifers in this section, but we needed some color, right? We needed some beautiful flowering plants in here. And starting off first here, I've got some catmint. Now this is going to have a really nice kind of light blue to purple flower. And we've been really spending a lot of time thinking about bloom times, as far as, you know, trying to have a flowering presence in the garden throughout the seasons. And this is a kind of early summer to late fall bloomer. Really prolific blooms on this too, and a beautiful kind of smell too. If you get that leaf, you get that nice little catmint smell. Absolutely cool plant. And it's going to provide a nice blue splash of color in this area. We have like a lot of yellows in this area, so we were looking for another beautiful color to add here. So come on, we'll check out a couple more. All right, so I'll grab two here. So we've got, this is a hummingbird mint. Not super familiar with this, but it's a beautiful perennial with just some light flowers, light pink flowers on that. And then we've got a beautiful cone flower on this side. This is a hot coral color, so it's kind of a reddish orange. Really pretty flower on that. I love cone flowers. I think they're like, if I had a favorite flower, it would be cone flowers. They just look so amazing to get nice and tall and to have that big bloom with the beautiful colors of petals on it. But yeah, splash of color here, pinks and some coral colors behind this blue that was in front of us here, and surrounded with some nice greens and yellows. So I think these will really add a lot to this section of the garden. All right, moving right along. So back here, I'm still kind of trying to figure out what I want to do with this plant. I think this is where it's going to go. I may have to move this smaller tree. I have a trident maple. This is Bling Bling, which gets beautiful golden color. It's one of the reasons I put it here. But now I've got this beautiful golden like smoke bush, and I'm really thinking that that might create a different look here that I like more in my mind of how it will play out in the long term. This gets about 6 feet tall by about 4 foot wide, and the beautiful little plumes, that little puff plumes that this thing sends off, really cool plant. Definitely one I'm excited to add to this section. And then out front of it, I've got another cone flower. Again, I always say that cone flowers are just some of my favorites. This is Sunseeker's Red. Gives you kind of a nice light pale red color. I think it would just pop off of this beautiful golden color behind. And I've got a lace leaf out front here that is a kind of a nice golden color as well, really light lime green. So we're always just looking for accent and colors and textures, and I think there's a lot of yellow right here, so I think breaking it up with some beautiful red flowers is the perfect remedy to give some beautiful contrast. And moving right along, so right here we've got, this is a cool cultivar. This is Acer palmatum John Tuevan. Very fancy name on that. Really like that cultivar, bold red colors. And then here we've got, this is a Bluebeard. This is got a really nice purple flower to it. Let you kind of zoom in on that. And I thought this would be really nice to sit out in front of this bold red color here and just kind of giving more splashes of color. Behind me here, I've got a beautiful variegated witch hazel called Little Prospect. Really cool plant, some golden yellows and green variegation. The reds in front, and then some blue out in front of that. Again, contrasting colors. All right, so moving right along. Whew. All right, so this is a black-eyed Susan. Kind of gives you that same vibe as the cone flowers, but this one's got some really nice color on it. I'll let you kind of zoom in on that. Got kind of a burnt orange color with a little bit of yellow highlights on the edges. Got this beautiful Japonicum behind me. This is Acer Japonicum Magetsu. Really nice, upright. Got some big leaves on it. Thought this would look really nice in this area, just contrasting with everything around it. Right out front here, I've got a barberry. I believe this is Red Rocket was the name on this one. It's got some really bright neon green colors, and then it kind of goes to this cherry red. Then I've got this orange black-eyed Susan that's going to kind of be behind it, just giving a nice splash of different arrays of colors here. I've got a couple of nice Japanese maples planted here as well. And then moving right along, I always like to think of azaleas. Obviously they have so many different colors of azaleas. It's amazing to kind of just collect the different colors and different petal types and everything. But this one's really cool. So this is, I've got a beautiful native azalea to the area. This is a deciduous azalea, but it has a beautiful white bloom. And this is an arborescens, which is one of the few azaleas that has a very sweet fragrance. And I think of azaleas a lot of times as a background plant. And so I'm gonna plant it back here into this corner kind of by this large japonicum here, but it's going to give a bunch of splashes of white blooms back behind this tree and provide a nice fragrance for the garden. Always something that's important to think about is a fragrant flower. That way, as you're walking along, you can take in the breeze and smell the beautiful trees and the plants. All right, moving right along. We just went from one azalea. Now we got another azalea. Look at this thing. I mean, talk about just blowing your mind, right? This is Gerard's fuchsia. Beautiful fuchsia, kind of purple color to it. And I mean, the blooms on this thing are just thick. They cover the whole entire top of that stem, and just a huge cluster. Really creates a dynamic color presence out here. And right out in front here, I've got a styrax. This is a Japanese snowbell. It gets these little white snowbell blooms on it, and the foliage is almost a black color. It gets really dark. So I thought it would really play off of this bright fuchsia color behind it. And again, one of my favorite things is contrasting in colors. So that was it for this particular section here. Wait, we got one more. Every time I think we're done, we got one more plant. This right here is another coneflower. This is Sunseeker's Purplicious. So Purplicious is going to give you a nice light purple flower. And again, coneflowers are just a really cool way to add different colors to your garden that you can't really get with a lot of other plants. And right here we have this purple flower, and then right behind it we have a deodar seed, or a dwarf deodar. This is Snow Sprite, which gets this really crazy like whitish blue color. So these purple flowers out front, I think, will really create a beautiful contrast there.
Now we're on my side of the garden. So behind me is our vegetable garden. I've got 6 raised beds in there. It's kind of been a slow process this spring, but with Bryan's help, we've been able to finally get them all weeded. We're gonna cultivate it and get that going. But to go into why we're here today, so along this fence line, we are creating basically just a row of flowers. Little did I know it would become a row of peonies. So we had already talked about the peonies that I purchased at Mr. Maple a few weeks ago. But yesterday at Linda's Plant Farm, I was able to purchase a peony that had my name in it. So it's called Francis or Tagot. And it looks like it gets almost that bright fuchsia color of the azalea that Bryan showed just a little bit ago. Very deep, dark colors. So I'm excited for that. And another plant that I've always wanted to add, but really hadn't for whatever reason, is yarrow. Butterflies love yarrow. And I really want to create a haven for our pollinators, our butterflies, because not only for them, it's going to be beneficial for my garden as the season progresses. So he does look a little sad at the moment. Why he was so dry, I have no clue, because we got tons of rain yesterday, but it was a little dry. We've got it watered. It'll bounce right back. But this is called Sassy Summer Taffy. And most of the yarrow that I have seen has been just yellow. So when I noticed this one at Bullington Gardens, I had to pick it up because it looks like it is just like a candy colors of pinks, whites, and light pinks. So I think that's going to be a nice addition. So the yarrow kind of goes hand in hand with my wildflower scatter that I have right here. You know, sometimes we have a plan in our mind of how we think something's going to go, and we just kind of have to rearrange as the season progresses. I didn't think this would actually come back, but they have been the first to bloom, and I am so thankful because I've seen bees all over it and they're loving it. But just creating a nice flower sanctuary here in front of my vegetable garden.
Okay, in this area right here, this has been kind of an ongoing project. This was covered in ivy and privet and all kinds of invasive plants that I had to fight and fight and fight. The battle is not done yet, but I'm still working on it. We have started planting some maples up here, and I needed to kind of jump in with some conifers in the area. And this is a cool one right here. This is a dwarf blue spruce. This is blue pearl. And I really like the blue colors that you can get with conifers. And I like how when the fresh needles are open up, it's got these little golden kind of covers to it. So it's got this golden color mixed in with that blue. This stays really small. It's a really small dwarf. I mean, this thing is only going to get about a foot tall in like 10 years. So it can fit in a lot of great spaces here in the garden. So it's going to be perfect here around a couple of these maples and provide an evergreen interest. So come winter, I can still enjoy some beautiful colors out here in this section of the garden. Let's jump on over to the next one. All right, so next up we got Pinus contorta. This is Taylor's Sunburst. Look at that new growth color. Beautiful yellow over that dark green. This plant, I mean, contrasts within itself, which is an amazing thing to think about. A lot of times you're trying to contrast with other things. This one provides that contrast within its own self. But also in this area here, I have this beautiful Naniwa Benny. And it's kind of like it comes out a really dark kind of orange red, popping off this yellow color. And then that leads us right to the next plant that we're gonna put here, which is a beautiful purple azalea. This is Amelia Rose. Now what's really nice about this azalea is it's got a very full, like double bloom. And as you can see, when those are opening up, they look like little roses. And just a really nice full bloom, and provides a really amazing splash of color. I've got this back here behind some of these maples and a couple of dwarf conifers. So once it gets a little taller, it's really going to make a statement out here in the garden. We love adding flowering plants out here, and this is a beautiful one to add to your landscape.
All right, so now we're in the mountain-esque side of the garden. This is the area where Bryan is trying to create just that mountainscape look with all the different textures of the maples, and we have some weeping ones and vice versa. But what better to add to a mountainscape than mountain laurels and rhododendrons that Bryan will be talking about in just a moment. But before he talks about those, I have to hop in and talk about Grandma Ghost. So we did purchase Grandma Ghost at the open house at Mr. Maple. I'm really glad that we decided to put Grandma Ghost here because it goes right along with some of the other ghosts that are in this section that I actually showed you and told you about in my favorites from our garden. So Grandma Ghost, this is going to be a perfect spot for her. She's not going to get very tall. She's going to get the same height as she does wide. So it's just going to fit nicely in this corner. And we have some nice red Japanese maples in front of her, along with Dragon Master, which is right behind Bryan, which is a nice yellow green color. So Grandma Ghost, as you know, is reticulated, and it has some amazing veining going on. But anyway, that's Grandma Ghost. I'm glad she's here. Now I'm going to let Bryan tell you about our mountain laurel and rhododendron.
All right. So I kind of have a theme going on in this particular section of the garden. I always think about the beautiful mountains here in western North Carolina, and they have some amazing, beautiful native plants. And I wanted to try to create that mountainscape that I see when we're out driving the Blue Ridge Parkway, which is so beautiful out there. And this is a kind of a rolling hill section in the garden, and I wanted to play off that effect. So of course I had to add a beautiful mountain laurel. This one is called Keepsake. It has a really dark kind of pink red border to the bloom with a white. It's going to look really nice with Grandma Ghost, which is going to give you that kind of creamy white and green variegation. And this being a really dark pink with the white blooms, really going to give you a nice pop of color here. And that evergreen mountain laurel foliage too is going to create a nice kind of just balance of texture and color in this area, even in those winter months. Really excited about adding this. You can't go in a mountain scene without having a mountain laurel. So beautiful plant. I'm excited to add right here in this section. Moving right along. So we all know that here in the mountains of western North Carolina, one of the most prominent plants out in that landscape is the rhododendrons. They get huge, massive, they're everywhere. And they create just such a beautiful evergreen presence in the woods year round. And I love that about it. And now I can't fit a gigantic native rhododendron in my garden. So I picked out one that stays relatively small. This is Henry's Red. It has a beautiful red bloom on that. Now most of the rhododendrons typically have kind of a purple or white bloom to it. So the red really caught my attention. I said, man, I gotta have a red blooming rhododendron. And again, this is gonna fit here in my mountain landscape. And you gotta have a rhododendron if you're doing a mountain themed part of your garden. All right, I'm excited to talk about these next couple of plants because I'm always looking for unique, just unique plants that are kind of not typical to see in your general landscape. And so these two caught my eye specifically. I've got a beautiful rhododendron. This is one called Honey Butter. I believe it's a hybrid rhododendron, but the blooms on this thing get a nice kind of pale yellow with some pink highlights in there and a little bit of orange splash as well. The kind of peak past the peak color right now, but this is kind of a semi-dwarf. So it is going to fill out this space here and give a nice evergreen presence here in the garden. And I've got a couple of maples out front of it. It's two that are very similar. I've got Yama Nishiki, beautiful reticulated type, and this is Higaseyama. Absolutely beautiful leaves on that. I think they're going to really complement each other with this beautiful bloom rhododendron behind it, giving evergreen. And then I'm all about that contrast. So let's go a little bit ahead here. And this one right here almost sounds too good to be true. We will see. I don't know a lot about this cultivar, but this is one of the bluest, like violet blue flower bloom I think I've ever seen. It's crazy. This is a beautiful rhododendron. Now this is a dwarf variety, only getting about 3 to 4 feet tall. And it's going to have, it's an evergreen rhododendron. I believe it's a hybrid, but it's going to create such a dynamic splash of color here because behind it you have that honey butter, which is that kind of yellow with the pink highlights and some crazy violet blues out front. And both of these are an evergreen plant. Very cool plant. I'm excited to add to the garden.
Okay, we are about to wrap this up, but we could not end this video without talking about this amazing plant. So this is a dwarf Korean lilac. Bryan actually brought this home. He was supposed to be working and then brought a plant home, but anyway, I can't complain. The fragrance that's coming off of this flower is almost nothing I've ever smelt before. So it has these beautiful, just light, pale purple flowers, but the fragrance is phenomenal. This thing, it's a dwarf. It's only going to get about 4 to 6 feet tall. So we have it here between an Indian summer and then a frosted purple. So between the deep dark burgundy purple of that maple and then the beautiful green with flushes of bronze and orange of that, it's just going to compare and contrast. I mean, that's what we're looking for in the garden. And I have to give a shout out to my mom because she sits on the porch a lot and she kind of gave us the idea of where to put it because this is going to really bring that fragrance up to the house. And if we have our windows open, we're going to be able to smell it there as well. So very excited to add this to the landscape. I hope you guys enjoyed that as much as we did. We absolutely love sharing our love for plants and trees, and just really enjoy bringing you along for the ride of how we are going to landscape out this area. But anyway, I thoroughly enjoyed this. Now Bryan gets to do the hard part and dig all the holes.
I've got my work cut out for me, but you know, when you're out in the garden enjoying it as much as we do, it doesn't really feel like work, because the great rewarding thing about that work is after you're done, you get to find a nice spot in your comfy chair out here by the maple chimney and relax and enjoy the fruits of your labor. As you can see behind us, we got the wind chime going. We picked up some hanging baskets. A few of those. We have a few other plants that we didn't get to today, but we figured we covered enough for the basics of what we had going on. We always appreciate you guys tuning into our videos. It's so much fun. You guys make it feel worth it to get out here and spend this time and share it with you. One of the things I always think about in my mind is when I'm creating a beautiful garden, it would be a shame to keep it all just for myself. So exactly. I get a chance to share it all with you guys through these videos, and it's really fun, and I appreciate all the support and feedback for us.
So until next time,
take care.